It is generally believed that the Spartans were the best warriors in Greece. Each Spartan was worth at least 3-4 soldiers of any other Greek city. At the Battle of Thermopylae, 300 Spartan hoplites warriors under the command of King Leonidas held off a Persian army of many thousands for 3 days. And everyone also knows about Spartan upbringing. When boys were taken away from their parents at the age of 7, not given any clothes, starved and cold, forced to fight with each other in general, the most severe and cruel methods to grow super soldiers of the ancient world. We know most of this information from the book Comparative Biographies by the Greco-Roman writer Plutarch. But here's the rub. Plutarch lived and worked in the late 1st and early 2nd centuries AD, during the time of Emperor Trajan. At that time, Sparta had long ago been a small provincial town, peaceful and quiet. More than 500 years had passed since the time of King Leonidas 480 BC. Archaeologists conducting excavations on the territory of ancient Sparta believed that Plutarch lied in his books, or to be more precise, simply rewrote various stories and legends, and that the Spartans threw sick children into the abyss, and about the fact that the Spartans did not let the boys eat, dress and wash, turning their lives into the hardest survival course, during which many children died, and that Spartan men were ignorant soldiers, capable only of waving a spear in battle. But then the question is, are there sources we can trust? Yes, there are. First of all, these are the books of the ancient Greek historian Xenophontes. Xenophontes was not only a scholar and writer, he was a professional military commander. Xenophontes lived in the 5th and 4th centuries BC, that is, he was a contemporary of those legendary Spartans. Though born in Athens, Xenophontes was a personal friend of the Spartan king Agesilaus II. Finally, 2 of Xenophon's sons themselves went through the Spartan system of education, agoge in Greek. By the way, Spartans very rarely invited the sons of outsiders to study with Spartan children. It was considered a great honor. What does Xenophontes write about Spartan education? He writes that boys were given only one hymation, a cloak, but he does not say that they were not given any other clothing. He simply emphasizes that Spartan boys were not raised like the young fashionistas of Athens. Xenophontes writes that the boys ate at a common table, and the portions were such that none of them became fat, and got an idea of what it meant to eat less than one wanted. But again, no one writes about the children being starved. During war games, the boys were given various tasks, including the task of stealing carefully guarded circles of cheese from the altar of Artemis. But no one talks about the fact that children were forced to steal constantly to survive. So, it turns out that Sparta had no such special military secret. Don't be too hasty. From 550 BC, Battle of Tegea, to 391 BC, Battle of Lechia, that is in 160 years, and wars in those times occurred constantly, the Spartan infantry did not suffer a single defeat. What modern army of the world can boast of such efficiency? So, after all, the Spartans had their own military secret. There was something special in the training of warriors. But what was it? To uncover a major Spartan military secret, let's look at the army of Athens, Sparta's frequent rivals. The army of Athens was a popular militia, that is, every healthy man had to perform military service during the war. In peacetime, he could be a peasant, a blacksmith, a merchant, and even a philosopher like the famous Socrates. But as soon as war was declared, he had to turn into a soldier without fail. The army of Athens consisted of 3 units: light infantry peltasts, heavy infantry hoplites, and cavalry. How did they decide who would be who? And very simply, according to the level of wealth. If a townsman was rich and could afford to buy a war horse, he went to the cavalry. A citizen of average wealth, able to buy a bronze armor, shield, and spear, went into the heavy infantry. The poorer citizens, armed with darts, slingshots, and bows, joined the light infantry. Since everyone bought his own armor, the quality and appearance of the armor could be very different. Those who were richer ordered shields for themselves, forged with bronze of the best grade, decorated with colorful coats of arms and drawings. Those who did not have enough money were often content with shields of purely wooden. Once a year, this army held general exercises, but they tried not to prolong the exercises, because the merchant had to go back to his shop, and the peasant to the fields and vineyards. And the relations inside the army were civil. On the left side of the line could be a fishmonger who cheated you at the market last month, and on the right a blacksmith with whom you had a quarrel and even a fight. What did Sparta come up with? First of all, the Spartans realized that recruiting troops, according to the property principle, was no good. The main fighting force at that time was considered to be heavy infantry hoplites, built in a long phalanx, a wall of shields. What if one of the warriors has a shield or spear of inferior quality? Where the thin is thin, the thin is torn. The poor armament of one hoplite can jeopardize the whole army. Then the Spartans decided that all soldiers in the army should be absolutely equal. Everyone received armor and weapons from the state carefully selected and tested. All shields were identical, no coats of arms or designs, only the Greek letter lambda, from the word Lacedaemon, which is how the Spartans called their state. All soldiers received the same scarlet-colored cloaks, which said, "There are no rich or poor in our army. Everyone is equal here." And, of course, no coppersmiths, fishermen, and peasants. A professional warrior must be a professional warrior and engage in combat training, and all year round. The Spartan system of education was also restructured to create a society of equals. All boys from the age of 7 lived in barracks, and saw their parents only on holidays. All of them received the same clothes and food. In the same way, they were practiced gymnastics, reading, music, dancing. But in addition, they were taught from a young age that the strength of the Spartan army was not in some superfighters, but in how well the phalanx was able to act together in friendship. They were taught to pass orders up the chain, quickly and quietly, and to obey those orders without question. They were taught to move in concert, to slowly crush the enemy with the mass of hundreds of men, shoulder to shoulder. They were taught to think first of all, not about themselves, but about their comrades, to defend in battle first of all their friend, and afterwards themselves. The boys from the same barracks were like brothers to each other. It was unthinkable that one little Spartan would steal something from another, or not stand up for him. As a result, the Spartan phalanx became a veritable fighting machine. It was not just a collective in which everyone goes to work or to school. It was a true family in which it was indeed one for all and all for one. The hoplites were taught to despise property, trade, money. They valued only military glory, and the glory of victory, or the shame of defeat, went to everyone equally. If they won, so did everyone. If they were defeated, so did everyone. The fighting qualities of the Spartan phalanx were demonstrated in 480 BC, at the Battle of Thermopylae during the Greco-Persian Wars. A force of 300 Spartans blocked the narrow pass of Thermopylae. There was a sheer cliff on the left and a high precipice on the right, so that it was impossible to bypass the phalanx from either land or sea. The task of the Spartans was to hold the Persians as long as possible, to cover the organized retreat of the allied forces of other Greek cities. The Persians were furious. A veritable bronze wall of spears stood in front of them across the isle. The Persian king Kashyarshyn, the Greeks called him Xerxes, threw his best troops at the Spartans, but they could do nothing against the disciplined phalanx acting as a unit. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, Kashyarshyn lost more than 20,000 soldiers, including 2 of his brothers, in 3 days of battle. When the Persians finally managed to overturn the resistance of the exhausted and wounded Spartans, it was too late. All over Greece stories were told about how a handful of warriors were able to inflict heavy losses on a strong and numerous enemy. The books also tell the following story. A Spartan named Aristodemus was one of the squad of 300, but on the eve of the battle, he fell ill, and King Leonidas sent him to the rear. As a result, Aristodemus did not take part in the battle, and therefore survived. The Spartans gave him the nickname Aristodemus the Coward, and despised him in every possible way. The next year, at the Battle of Plataea, Aristodemus fought the Persians with such desperate bravery that the other Greeks wanted to declare him the best warrior of the battle. However, the Spartans opposed this, declaring that Aristodemus had done nothing outstanding, he was just looking for death to get rid of the disgrace. Some would call them cruel, but it is worth remembering again how Spartan warriors were raised. For Aristodemus, his unit was more than just a place of service, it was his family, his best friends, his brothers, his comrades, with whom he was raised and grew up. To be left completely alone, without loyal friends and family here, you can really despair and seek death in battle. If you liked the video, then don't forget to put a like and subscribe to the channel. There will be a lot of interesting, shocking, and exciting things ahead.